If you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip?
Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes gravity. Choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. Daddies, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stacked that he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't pass him.
Listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about... Wait.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM, right here on DSM Media Live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, retweet, share, hit that thumbs up and subscribe button over on the YouTube page. Also, heading over to the YouTube page, the best place to get involved. Put your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your concerns, anything that you have in the comment section over there on YouTube. Pop them up on the screen, right like these examples right here. Got lots to talk about today. And we got a lot to talk about. We came live a few minutes early just to get a couple minute head start here on the show because we got a jam-packed episode, lots to talk about. We got the great Chris Franklin from NJ.com. He's on the Eagles beat, covering the Eagles, does an excellent job over there at NJ.com. He'll be joining us at 9 o'clock, and we'll be transitioning back into some Eagles talk this week. The schedule's released this tonight, the release. So it's time to start getting some Eagles talk and conversation back in the fold here on Trending in the AM. But we still got Sixers game 6 tonight. We still got Phillies. We still got other great topics to get into. So we're going to cover the Phillies and the Sixers here in the first half of the show. Game 6 tonight. Dodgers-Phillies series starts tonight. We're going to cover that to start the show. Then we'll transition to the Eagles talk the second half of the program. I am Phil Stifle, your host at Beard and Knowledge. Make sure you shoot me a follow on Twitter. And I'm joined by my main compadre here, Jason Voorhees, at Mustang3651. Good morning, Jason. How you doing today?
Doing all right, man. What's going on? I ready to have a great show. We got Chris on. Chris is an awesome, does an awesome job covering the Eagles, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of refreshing to have something new to talk. I mean, I listen. I know we talk about a lot about the Sixers, and you've said it before. They're in the playoffs, but it does kind of get
got to talk about
monotonous sometimes when we need other things to talk about.
We got 8 months of the year to talk Eagles. Sometimes we got to talk those Sixers. I know you get a little tired of that Sixers conversation.
No. Listen, I don't get tired of it. I just feel like it's so.
You hate it. Hate it. You want to talk the Flyers. Just admit what you want to do,
dude.
You're just ready to talk Flyers and Flyers only.
I don't even think you have that segment anymore.
Oh, I still got it there somewhere. Hold on. See, it's still there.
We can talk about the Flyers. Did you see what happened?
No, I don't really care what happened to the Flyers.
The pitch got debacled. They went from. Never mind.
Nobody in Philadelphia cares about the Flyers. Nobody.
Exactly.
Nobody. And do you blame them? I mean, it's hard enough for us to get anybody to care about the Phillies. Might as well, that's.
We're talking to a guy that started a Flyers podcast, with my friend this year, and
you picked the worst year to do it.
And I didn't even cover Flyers for half the season. We covered the Phillies. That's how bad it was.
It was a bad season for the Flyers. All right, let's get into it. So, Game 6 tonight, Phillies or Sixers, Heat. I was very excessively over the top yesterday. I was very passionate. I got really fired up yesterday. I tried to be a very impartial, just discussion on the Sixers and on all things on this show. I try not to let my emotions overtake me. But man, game five was just that bad, and I just had to get my chest cleared there of all that stuff. And I'm trying to get myself excited for Game 6 tonight Home team has won every game so far. Sixers are actually a 2-point favorite tonight, even after that shellacking that they took in Game 5. So, Jason, it's your job to convince me it's okay to get myself pumped up for Game 6 tonight. It's okay to convince myself that there is a chance tonight. And then in a Game 7 in any sport, anything goes. Convince me that it's okay to get excited. Is that impossible to do?
I think it's impossible because, well, now listen, anything is possible. But when you see a team as lifeless as the Sixers were in Game 5, in a game that I realistically believe was a must-win game, because you said the numbers the other day, 85%, I think, of teams that win Game 5 go on to win the series. So 85% is pretty strong in the opposite
direction. Not win the series. I just want to see if they can win Game 6 tonight.
I think they'll win. I think they're going to come out and, I think they'll have the game that I expected in Game 5 that I swore that they would have. I think they'll come out fired up, and I think Embiid, is probably even more pissed now because, now people are saying that he, didn't perform well in the game. And as he mentioned, damned if I do, damned if I don't. If I don't play, they're gonna criticize me for being hurt, and if I play, they're gonna criticize me for not playing up to my capabilities of scoring 40 points a game. Like, no matter what, Embiid's gonna get criticized. That's what happens to great players. When you don't succeed. The problem is like it's not just Embiid; it's the whole team. The team needs to step it up. They stepped it up in one game. Game 4, when Harden had his signature game as a Sixer. I mean, we listen, to expect more of that. I was saying that it's possible. I am at the point now where I don't believe it is, because I don't know what the hell's wrong with this guy. Like, I don't know if it's like, it's definitely mental, but I just don't know. What I'm expecting tonight, or what I'd like to see, is I'd like to see Tyrese Maxey kind of take over and have one of his big time games. And I know it's like it's hard to expect that from a 21-year-old, but it's also
we've come to expect it, so it's time to expect it on a regular basis. Look, I don't know where to go. I mean, Philly, you're saying that the Nets and the Sixers both lost their trade. There's rumors that the Nets are going to try to trade Ben Simmons to the Hawks. Depending on what they get from the Hawks, the Nets might, in the big grand scheme of things, win the trade. I
don't think the Sixers could possibly lose that trade. He had to go. He was a cancer. He was a problem. I don't care if they got nothing back. The Sixers gained by getting rid of him. So, no, the Nets lost the trade because the Nets had James Harden, and now they have an even worse.
The Nets are going to be a complete upheaval. I mean, their management is saying that they need a culture change already. I mean, there's going to be a lot of changes in Brooklyn there. So with Joel Embiid, and we talked about it yesterday. About Charles Barkley's comments about him sulking and not being he was playing poorly because he lost the MVP. I don't know if you saw the final voting for the MVP, but here are the final votes for the MVP. And I don't know if you can see this on your screen, Jason. I don't know how big your screen is. But damn, not only did Nikolai Jokic beat Joel Embiid for the MVP, he destroyed Joel Embiid for MVP. 65 of the 100 first place votes versus 26 to Joel Embiid. 9 for Giannis down there in Milwaukee, or up there in Milwaukee. 65 to 20. 65% of the people. Not one, not like 30 or 40.
Who are these voters?
NBA writers.
Well, that's the problem. Once again, you have Major League Baseball writers that pick who goes into the Hall of Fame. You have NBA writers who pick who is the MVP. That's absolute bullshit. Okay? It's bullshit.
I can't wait. You just gave us a new question. I mean, I know we're going to bring Chris Franklin on to talk Eagles at 9:00. I think at some point in that conversation, we're going to have to talk about the voters and the writers and how they make their decisions on these voting processes. And, and what his thoughts are. I don't know if he's got a vote for. I mean, there's only 100 votes for MVP. There's like 400 for the Hall of Fame for MLB. I don't know how they pick these guys, but I love. We'll have to see if time permits us to get into that conversation with them, because that's embarrassment. All right, you want to say Nikolai Jokic might have been the MVP? Let me see the vote be 45 to 45 to 10 to Giannis. It should have at least been close.
It's disgraceful.
That wide of a margin, it's embarrassing. Straight embarrassing.
I mean, but listen, at the end of the day, like at this point in time, we got more to worry about than the MVP. And the fact of the matter is, Joe, I like Charles Barkley. I actually happen to really like Charles Barkley. I think he's a great personality. He's always funny. He's controversial sometimes. He says some things sometimes that maybe is off the wall, but Charles Barkley usually is right on. I have to disagree with him. I don't think Joel Embiid is sulking because of the MVP. I think Joel Embiid is hurt and in pain, and he's trying his best to give his all when the rest of the team around him shit in the bed. That's the problem.
They're not giving their all. That's
exactly.
They're not giving their all.
Maybe that's why he's sulking. You know what?
That's what we need in Game 6. We need everybody, win or lose. We need the Sixers to show up and put some energy. Match Joel Embiid's energy. Because we said it before, and we'll say it again. The Sixers are a better team. They're a more talented team than the Miami Heat.
They are.
The Miami Heat play with energy, heart, fight, desire. We talk about taking on the personality of your coach in baseball and in football and in basketball. The Heat have taken on the personality of their star player, Jimmy Butler, who just never stops, never gives up, and just keeps pushing forward. The Sixers players need to take on the personality of Joel Embiid and push and fight and bear down and just give a little bit extra every single play. And if they do that, then there's no reason why they can't win Game 6. But if they come out with a lackluster effort, and hey, you know what? I would be one to say, that the MVP isn't what made Joel Embiid play bad. And if you want to say it's not the pain, well, maybe he came out early in the game because he actually made the first bucket. He came out, first play ran right through him. He had a nice post-up move, nice jump shot from, I think it was top of the key. I forget exactly where it was. He made the shot, went down, played defense. All of a sudden, he saw his team come out with no energy. And whereas we want the team to take on his personality and energy level, maybe he kind of took on the energy level. If nobody else on the team is going to come out and try, why should he? I'm not giving him an excuse for that. And I think that kind of came out wrong. I'm not trying to say he shouldn't have to, but maybe it kind of domino affected. He kept trying and trying and trying. No one else was putting out the effort, and he kind of just got a little frustrated in that sense.
Well,
do you know what I'm trying to get at? The words aren't coming out right.
I think it's a combination. I think it's more so the fact that if he's sulking about anything, I think maybe the frustration is coming out. The fact that he's frustrated with his teammates for not giving a damn when he's out there busting his ass. I think that's more likely. I don't think it's that he took a step down on his energy level. I think he's frustrated, but I think it's the frustration surrounding his teammates not giving their all as opposed to a frustration of not winning the MVP. I think it just, maybe it's coming out that way and people are just thinking, oh, it's because he's pissed off about that. But maybe he's upset that here I am, I came back, and then this is what you guys do. And
look, Carter's saying if they lose tonight, fire Doc immediately. If they play like they did in Game 5, dude, Carter, I'm on record saying it's not just that. If I'm Joel Embiid and this team come out and gets embarrassed tonight, like they did in Game 5, which I got another point on that in a second. If they do, Joel Embiid better be marching right to not Daryl Morey's office, but Josh Harris's office. I mean, like, yo, look what I just did. I just played through more pain than anybody could play through. And this is what you give me? I want Doc gone. I want Daryl Morey gone. I want in this office, and I want to say on all decisions going forward, Look, we talk about LeBron is really the GM and coach of teams that he's on. Dude, Joel Embiid needs to take that, next step and be like, this is what I want, and help shape the team. Because look, we're not going to get we're not going to have 10 more years of this Joel Embiid. We need to win a title with Joel Embiid now, next year, sometime soon. If we come out flat, it better be a chopping block of a lot of players. Let me tell you something. You notice it. Spider Mitchell was in the house the other day. Steph Curry was in the house the other game. NBA players are taking notice of Joel Embiid and what he's doing. You had Kevin Durant standing up for Joel Embiid. Kevin Durant and him, when they're battling in a game, they're ready to rip each other's throat out. Kevin Durant is standing up and sticking up for Joel Embiid. Players are going to, all of a sudden, I think the player mindset is changed on Joel Embiid. They stopped thinking of him as a troll and started realizing what level of a player he is. And it's not going to be as hard as it used to get players that want to come here to Philadelphia to play. Because they see, if we get the right combo of players together here in Philly, it's going to be one of the most dominant teams of all time, because you're going to have the best center on the planet playing on this team. One of the best players in the league playing on this team. So what Joel Embiid's doing now, marketing-wise for the future, is going to help. So Joel Embiid needs to make sure he has full influence on what is going on in this team in the future.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, the fact of the matter is that if the Sixers don't win, before this postseason started, there was a lot of skeptics, including some of us.
Right.
As far as how good this team really is and how far they could really go. But obviously, you as a, I'm not saying we're homers, but you being a Sixers fan, the fan in you being wanting this team to win so bad, a lot of times you try to be positive even in light of negative circumstances. So I think a lot of us wanted to believe that this team was really good enough, but in reality, at the end of the day, you have to really take a hard, deep look at this roster and the way that it's constructed. And you've talked about it so many times about how flawed the roster is. The Sixers are one of those teams. Like, listen, I know that it's a team of stars, and all these teams usually build like a big three, or quote unquote, if that's what the term is. But the way that the Sixers roster is constructed, it's so top heavy to the point that if one or two of the stars aren't performing or having a bad night, you're screwed. There is no depth at all. And that, especially in the playoffs, not just in any, in basketball, in any sport, depth is extremely important because of that reason. And you're going to see teams like the Miami Heat, who might not have three big stars like the Sixers, but they do have a Jimmy Butler that can basically take over when it comes to playoffs. But their roster is more balanced. Like I talked about it the other day when I looked at the box score. You had 5 or 6 guys over 10 points. The Sixers probably haven't had 5 or 6 guys with 10 points all year. That's the problem, Phil.
I agree. I agree with you 100%.
I think our mentality is we wanted to believe that they're good enough, and we wanted to believe that James Harden coming here was going to turn this team around, and we wanted to believe that Tobias Harris was going to all of a sudden get back to becoming the 20-point scorer a game guy that he was. Like, all of these things we want.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, like, at the end of the day, realistically, this team is only going to go as far as Joel Embiid takes them.
Yeah, and that leads right here to Carter's comment. How much more of this shit can Embiid take? When does he decide he wants out? Now, that's why Joel Embiid needs to kind of overstep Daryl Morey and go right to Josh Harris. Because if you leave, Joel Embiid doesn't go and do that, Daryl Morey is going to, I fear it. I fear it so much. He's going to use the excuse of Embiid's injuries. He's going to use the excuse that James Harden didn't have a lot of time to gel. And he's going to run it all back. He's going to bring Doc Rivers back. He's going to bring James Harden back. He's going to He's going to do it all. And then that's when this happens. Then Joel Embiid's like, shit, I want out of here. And, I kind of talked about that with Bryce Harper before.
I'm just going to say.
And it's a great transition to the Phillies. How much more of that can Bryce Harper take? And, we know in sports in general, the NBA excessively, and football and baseball as well, the stars and the players control the league. If one of those players demands, what we saw with Ben Simmons and James Harden, they both wanted out of their teams. They just sat out. They control the narrative. If Joel Embiid's pissed and doesn't want to play anymore, then they'll have no choice but to trade him. They'll get a lackluster trade. It would be catastrophic if Joel Embiid decided he did not want to play here anymore. But how much more of it can he take?
It's a great word, catastrophic.
It is catastrophic. I'm just thinking of world, and I was watching Deep Impact the other night. A world-ending event. You get The Walking Dead. Like it's like this catastrophe. I don't even want to think about that. I just want to think Sixers win tonight.
Well, no, but it's a valid point, and we've talked. It's funny that you went into the Harper talk, and I guess with that we could probably transition to the Phillies if we're ready.
Real quick, yeah, we will. Let's just get predictions in real quick. Do the Sixers win tonight?
Yes, I think the Sixers win, and I think once again I'm going to go with a close game. I think tonight they're going to get. It's going to be 112 to 103. I think they're going to go over 100 tonight.
Okay.
But
you're going to be disappointed in this, but I am actually going to say no, they do not.
Okay.
I'm going to say they lose tonight.
That's fine.
I think the energy level has been zapped. I think Joel Embiid is tapped. You can only manage pain so much. And managing pain is exhausting. Trying to mentally block out pain is exhausting. I don't think they've got enough in the tank tonight. I think it's close. I think they put a better effort out there. They're not going to lose by 35. But I got the Sixers losing 110 to 102 tonight.
Okay.
So that's how I got that.
Fair enough. I mean,
I think it's unfortunate. But let's move it on to the Phillies talk here real quick because we got Chris Franklin joining us in about 10 minutes here. So I want to get a little bit of Phillies conversation in here because the Phillies did not falter last night. Like, do you get what I did there? They didn't
falter.
They didn't falter.
Daily falter.
Bing. Hold on.
A pun on words.
I'm just so funny. I'll be here all week, guys. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought? We talked about this yesterday. Obviously, everything said. We were going up against a pitcher that had given up like one earned run in his last 4 starts combined. And we were throwing a guy out there that was a bullpen guy, which I didn't realize if we had sent him down to the minors and he had started a few games at AAA to stretch out a little further. But a guy that doesn't belong in majors really comes in, pitches 4 2/3 innings, keeps us in it. Rhys Hoskins, grand salami, only runs in the game. We win 4-2. We take 2 out of 3 against Seattle. We now have the Mets lost yesterday, so we're back to only 6.5 games out. Look at all that positivity coming out of me there. It's just oozing out of me. Here come 4 games against the Dodgers then. So, we talk about Joel Embiid and, what it would take for him. How much more can Bryce Harper take of this inconsistency without Dave Dombrowski making a major decision, firing Joe Girardi, making a big trade for a pitcher, shaking up this organization? This organization needs a major shakeup, player-wise and management-wise. How much more can they take?
Well, I wish I could get inside Bryce Harper's head and see where he's at. Because part of me thinks, okay, well, Bryce is probably happy with the offseason that Dombrowski had. And why not? I mean, Middleton allowed the team to go over the tax. And, I mean, we did something that they've never done. So you can't really bitch at that.
Right.
But the performance is the same. It's the same inconsistent results. So to me, that signifies that it's either the manager or it's the collective group of players that are playing together that aren't meshing. It's got to be one or the other. It has to be one of those. In my opinion, it's the manager. But we've seen that rodeo before. I mean, we blamed Gabe Kapler, and this team hasn't really gotten much better besides the fact that it's more talented now than it was with Gabe Kapler as far as on paper. I mean,
Right.
you have, obviously you've added Zach Wheeler, you've added,
Castellanos.
Barber, Castellanos, the
Hey, look,
bullpen's a lot better.
Corey Knebel's pitching damn
But
well.
that's what I mean. The bullpen actually quietly has been, I don't want to say a strength, but it's been better.
Been decent.
It's been better than years past.
It's not what. Hey,
our bullpen was like
the worst.
like the freaking depths of hell bad as far as Major League Baseball bullpens. But
this is an interesting comment by Carter here. That he says they don't have a true leader. It's the manager's fault. No one stepped up.
Well, that's
isn't that Bryce Harper's job though?
But that's why I asked the question. Is it necessarily the manager? Because we can blame the manager, but I agree with Carter. I think there's something missing, and you're right. Well, isn't Bryce the leader? I think he is, but I think you need more than one leader on a baseball team. I think baseball teams I don't know if you want to look at a team that I always look to model what I think a baseball team should be, it's that 93 Phillies team, because that team wasn't super talented, but they all meshed and they played together and they played for each other like a brotherhood. And you don't see that obviously much in today's game anyway. But I don't see anything close to that on this team. I don't see guys that are bonding and going at how they talk about
you say that 93 team, and I think of leader, and I think of Darren Dalton, and how I would think that if somebody disappointed Darren Dalton, they'd be scared, because not only was he a leader in the group, he'd pull you aside and dress you down and tear you a new one.
Exactly.
And I kind of think of Darren Dalton. There's no one on this Phillies team because Bryce Harper is the rah leader. Yeah, let's go. Everybody hits, but he's not a guy that's going to go into the locker room and go, "You all sucked ass tonight. Let's go." Or, "Hey, Jason, come here. I got to talk to you in the trainer's room real quick," and then lay into you really hard. That's what Darren Dalton was, and we've heard those stories countless times. Nobody wanted to be on Darren Dalton's bad side.
And you can't fault Bryce for that. Bryce is who he is. I'm not saying he's not a good leader, but I agree. They need a guy that's going to hold players accountable. And I'm not saying Harper isn't pissed off at guys, but I don't think Harper will call them out. You're right. I think, and I don't know, I don't want to say he's scared, but that's just not his personality. That's not his personality. He doesn't have it in him. But they do need somebody like that. I agree. Carter's on fire today. I think Castellanos is the guy, but he's only been here a short time. How is he going to, change the whole culture? One guy can't change a culture. It takes time.
In 6 weeks.
But I do believe that there is a problem with the Phillies culture in general. And that goes beyond the manager, like Carter said. That's the players. And it's guys like Rhys Hoskins. Now listen, Rhys Hoskins the last couple of games turn it on. I'm not talking about his play. I'm talking about Rhys Hoskins, the person.
Right. Some
of these guys that just feel entitled, or they're better than who they really are.
Right.
You talk about times where we've seen where players haven't hustled. I think of a guy like Gene Segura. I actually love Gene Segura. I think he's a guy that he's going to hit close to 300 every year. He does a lot of good things, right. But he also tends to, get lazy once in a while, and he won't run out of, a base hit, or he won't, make a super big effort on a play. You see that kind of stuff a lot on this Phillies team, and that we could blame management, but that's not management. That's players. That's not guys not putting in the time, not having the drive. And, I think it's the entire Phillies culture needs a remake. And that doesn't just happen overnight. So unfortunately,
starts with the manager.
We might be waiting a while for this team to actually, really truly contend, because they on paper have a good roster. It's not great. It's good in my opinion, but it's flawed. We've talked about that till we're blue in the face that, their hitting is they have a bunch of guys that can mash, but they're not necessarily consistent, and they don't have a balanced lineup.
It's a similar situation with the Sixers. It's not a good combination. You know, you got guys that do individual things okay, but they don't work together as a team. Same thing with the Phillies. You got, I mean, you look at the lineup. You know, I'm bored. You know, I've said it since day one that I've wanted Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot. But maybe it's time to consider that he isn't the leadoff hitter because he was doing well. He got out of his slump, out of it. Back in the leadoff spot, he's back down to like 188. You know, maybe that's a problem. Reese Hoskins, you moved him down the lineup. He's finally getting a swing back. That's great. But let's leave him there because at least he's consistent there.
He won't. Joe won't. Joe will put him back in a 2-hole.
Guarantee he'll be bumped up in the lineup because of the way he's hitting. Guarantee it. It starts at the top. But it goes back to that conversation of Joel Embiid wanting out. How much more can Bryce Harper take? Is he going to stay here for 13 years of 81 win seasons? Absolutely not. There's no way.
What do you think he's thinking right now?
He's right now today. Quietly, he's thinking
he made a mistake.
No, not yet. I don't think he's thinking he's made a mistake. Maybe he's thinking, was I lied to? Maybe he's thinking, what does his team? I think Bryce Harper, I mean, he hasn't shied away from going to management and saying, I want JT here. I want Nick Castellanos or Chris Bryant here. He goes and tells these guys what he wants.
He knows the game.
I would like to see him say that I need a management change here. What's up, Bird Gang? I can tell you, we're bringing the Eagles talk into the conversation in just a minute or two here.
See,
I know you for the Eagles talk.
I see what you're saying, but I don't like players necessarily running the show when it comes to getting rid of the manager. Like, I think that's an ownership decision. That should come from John Middleton, and that should be just realistic. Like, if I owned a team and I saw my team faltering the way that the Phillies are, and when I went out and spent $1 billion, over the last X amount of years, dude, I'd be firing everybody. I would fire everybody and just start from scratch. I would run the team. Frig it. I mean, if I was John Middleton, I'd be running this goddamn team. Like, what is wrong?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you 100%. But, it comes back to the thing with Joel Embiid marching to Josh Harris's office. The players control these teams. They have more say than we realize. Some of us realize, some of us don't. They have the control. Bryce Harper isn't going to want to lose for 13 years. Joel Embiid isn't going to want to waste his 3 or 4 year prime. They need to go and make a statement. Be like, yo, if we're not going to make a true commitment to winning, even if that means taking a step back, because the Phillies kind of have to take a step back before they take 2 steps forward. He needs to make that statement because otherwise I want out of here. And with that, we get to transition from all this disappointing, Phillies and Sixers talk to the team that surprisingly is the most moving forward positive team in this city. Get a little Eagles talk, a little Eagles conversation back into the fold here in the morning. We are joined by my main man, Chris Franklin from NJ.com. He's on the beat with the Eagles. Good morning, Chris. How you doing this morning?
Hey, doing great, guys. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show this morning.
Hey, thank you guys. Are you kidding me? It's always great talking to you guys. Great interacting. So I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome stuff, my friend. So let's dive right into it because we've just been spending the last 30 minutes just complaining and talking about the Sixers and the Phillies and all that good conversation. And we are going to bring the Sixers back into the conversation at the end of the show because you are a writer. So we got to get your opinion on the writers voting for these awards and how they go about this process and stuff like that. But let's talk Eagles. Crazy. They have had a very, in my opinion, a positive offseason. As good of an offseason as we could have hoped for, in my opinion, at this point. Where are you on the positivity level and the success level of this offseason so far?
Well, I think they transformed their defense a lot. I mean, when you look at that front seven now, I think overall, when you look at everything they did, I think defensively they fixed some things that they needed to. I think they needed to get a better pass rush. I mean, you can't finish second to last when it comes to sacks in the league and only have 29 last year with guys like Cox and Hargrave along your front line. So the fact that they added Hassan Reddick, they changed that linebacking core. I think that's something to look forward to. And I think offensively, I mean, you'd be remiss without mentioning AJ Brown. I think just adding him alone on the offense is going to open up so much stuff for all the other players. I mean, Devonta Smith, like, he's going to be a really good player, and the fact you have AJ Brown across from him, not only do you get a veteran guy who knows how to get open, you get a guy now. Devonta Smith doesn't have to face double teams a lot. You get Dallas Goedert doesn't have to face double teams a lot, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, we got to figure out how we're going to stop AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. Oh wait, there's more room to run the ball. So overall, when you look at the changes they made on defense and the addition of AJ Brown, I think this team could do a lot better than what they did last year.
So,
sorry.
So it's all right. So that's actually a good transition. So to what I wanted to talk about. So we discussed on a previous show the idea that, with getting AJ Brown and the fact that this team has now an offense that, could be reckoned with, are there no more excuses for Jalen Hurts at this point then? Like, has Howie done enough now to say, okay, well, now you got the weapons, like, now you got to go out and, show improvement?
I think so. This definitely has to be a make or break year, because there's no excuse now. At least last year you could look and say, okay, there's only two weapons and teams started double team on who else were you going to throw the ball to. Now there's no excuse for that when it comes to there. And it gets to the point now where I know basically the Eagles set themselves up to get a quarterback next year with those 2 first-round picks. This is it for him. I really believe it. And when I'm looking at his past, I look at what he's done when it comes to improvement, I think it's actually going to be the year that you look and go, hey, you know what? This guy actually could be the quarterback for the next 2-3 years in the future as well, too. And he's got to prove it, because it's not only does he's playing for his basically starting life this year, he's playing for a contract as well, too. Because after next year, he's a free agent, and we've seen the money that's getting thrown around right now. So he's playing for a big check.
So speaking about the money being thrown around, there's money being thrown around on the betting side, too. Because I think I read yesterday that FanDuel or DraftKings, one of them said they have more MVP tickets placed for Jalen Hurts than anybody else right now. So I guess the bettors out there, people are buying into maybe that this is a year that Jalen Hurts takes a step forward. And then there was the other reports that maybe now with AJ Brown, we might not see as run heavy of an offense as we did last year. Now I think that's really what Nick Sirianni wants to do. I think he wants to keep that running offense going. I don't know. Where do you stand on? Will we see a different offense, do you think? Because I think that's what he likes. I think that's his way of doing it.
I think we'll see what we saw at the beginning of last year, where they tried to throw the ball a lot, and then there was that realization of, we don't have the pieces to do this. All right, we got to change on the fly a little bit. So I think we're going to see a little bit more passing. It may not be the 40-yard bombs, 50-yard bombs. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more bubble screens. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more, like, say, the intermediate game used a lot more, because you have the guys that are in place that can able to run those routes successfully and get yards after the catch. So I wouldn't be surprised that. And when it comes to the betting thing, I can see why Hurts is the biggest favorite, because if you look at, like, the lines, like, say if you keep going, like, Aaron Rodgers are always going to be low, the Russell Wilsons are always going to be low. You got a guy with all this talent now around him who's shown the ability not only to run the ball, but also could potentially throw now with all those guys on the field. It might be a little bit higher. It might be, I don't know. I forget the number what it does, but a little higher number. Why not just take a flyer on it?
Yeah, before all the bets started rolling in, and, if you're a betting guy, once the bets start rolling in, they lower those odds.
Oh yeah.
I know it was at 40-1. It was 40-1. Which I place a bet on the Eagles quarterback every single year to win the MVP. It's just, it doesn't matter. It's just my.
You had Sam Bradford? You had Sam Bradford win the MVP once?
I don't know. That was a long time ago. Was sports betting legal back then? I don't know.
Offshore.
I take one Philly, one Sixer, and one Eagle every year as MVP. I take one Philly as Cy Young every year. I place one bet, and I place a small bet on a Philly team to win the title every single year. Nice. It's just a fun homer in me. And then sometimes it pays off. With Bryce Harper winning MVP last year, you know what I mean? That covered like 5 years worth of MVP votes. That's so go ahead.
So Chris, talk to us about AJ Brown. So, like, in my opinion, I think for what we gave up, I think we got a steal. I think, he's a 24-year-old guy, and I've been very high on him since he came out. What are your thoughts on AJ Brown, and what is his ceiling as far as I got criticized because I said that his potential's top 5, but I got criticized for saying that. But I really believe he's that talented. Where are you at with AJ? And tell us what we're getting.
I think you're getting a guy where the Eagles needed a bigger receiver. They really did, because when you look at Smith, when you look at Quez Watkins and Rager, they're a little bit smaller guys, and you need, when you get to the red zone area, you need a bigger target. You can't always rely on Dallas Goedert being that guy, because teams are going to know, hey, it gets a little tighter windows. You need somebody to go up and get it. Who do they have? Okay, yeah, Dallas Goedert. But I think with AJ Brown, not only do you get that bigger receiver, you're getting a veteran guy that can help basically lead that young room. I know he's not the oldest guy. He's not the oldest guy, but you get a guy whose experience has been to a Pro Bowl, and you're also getting a guy who can also get some yards after the catch. So you can turn like a 5-yard hitch into like a 20-yard gain. He's got that type of ability, and he's got a little bit more reliable hands, I think, than some of the other receivers that are on the roster. You may have used a first-round pick on in 2020. But I think when you get a guy like that, he just opens, he commands so much attention. I know when it comes to basketball, you talk about gravity, and you get guys like, basically when it comes to defenders trying to shade that way to him. I think AJ Brown brings that type of gravity to the offensive football sense, that you may have to shade his safety over towards the side to make sure he doesn't burn you. You may have to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we have to put another defender that way, or maybe we have to play more zone now to make sure you don't get beat over the top. And if that's the case, now you allow your other receivers to pick apart, and Jalen Hurts to pick apart that zone, pick up more first downs, keep drives alive and keep going that way. So he brings a lot to this offense, and in many sort of facets, not just a big playability, but just in the little details as well too.
So we talk about the no excuses now for Jalen Hurts and the offense. Somewhat the same could be said for Jonathan Gannon and that defense. Jonathan Gannon is now a well-known guy because everybody wanted him as their head coach. He didn't get it. He's back. You got Hassan Reddick. You got Jordan Davis. You got Nakobe Dean, maybe. I don't know how you're feeling, whether he's going to play or not, and the whole injury situation there. There's still a glaring hole at cornerback 2, and I know somebody's asking, thoughts on whether we signed Bradbury or not. Can the same be said for Jonathan Gannon, that there's no excuses now because he does have a better defense now, and he's got a better pass rush and stuff like that?
Personally, I think this is his last year with the Eagles. I think one of two things is going to happen. Either he's going to be hired as a head coach because he's bright, he's well respected, and you can see his philosophy, or the defense completely underachieves, and you're looking like, oh, okay, you need to bring somebody in to basically maximize the talent you have. I think it's going to be the former. I think I think this defense is going to be a lot better than what it was beforehand. I mean, when you look at last year, one of the biggest problems that they had were missed tackles, and basically two of the biggest culprits of that are now no longer with the team, Alex Singleton, Eric Wilson. I think when it comes to them, they're gone. And it looks like, I know they don't run a 3-4 per se. I know they don't 4-3. They use a lot of flexible things, but it's pretty interesting what Hassan Reddick said yesterday, and that the defensive ends and the outside linebackers all working together. I'm like, wait a minute, that usually happens in that sort of defense. So I think you won't see Gannon commit to one or the other, but I think you'll start to see a little bit more creativity. You may see a little bit more 3-4 looks. I wouldn't be surprised to see some 5-1. Like, he'll mix it up and try to confuse the quarterbacks a lot more than he has in the past, because he has the guys that can run back. Not only just like, you can always say like, oh, I want to disguise his own, but you have the players look like they can be one way and then run around across the other. So I think you'll see a little bit more of that, and I think it'll be one of those things where, oh, wow, look, Jonathan Gannon is really good defensive coordinator. Oh, wait, he's going next year. Oh, great.
I tried to tell everybody at the end of the season, the fact that he's getting all these job interviews and at least being talked about, it really just came down to a lack of talent last year on that defense, because his philosophies are there, but you got to give him the weapons to actually execute that philosophy.
Yeah, and one thing that you hear especially is that these guys love playing for him. And I know it's cliche. A lot of times you hear like, you can have the worst coach from home. Oh no, he's a great guy. We love playing with him, and it's great. Everything else is no. These guys seem to actually generally like him and generally want to play for him. They always talk about how energetic and exciting he is. And I think the biggest thing that he did last year was when Fletcher Cox, we were at post game, I believe it was after the Raiders game, and you looked and you heard her say like, I'm not this guy. I don't want to run this style defense. I'm not a read guy to attack. he didn't lose the locker room after that. He didn't lose the defensive unit after that. He actually listened to heard him out, and you started to see them basically Cox using a little bit more through the gap and playing the old way he used to do. He still did some reading, but he mixed it up, and it showed that Gannon was able to be open to change, and that's key for a coach. So I think overall, when you look at it,
he would drop back into coverage, Fletcher Cox. I remember a point last year early in the season where they had him dropping back in coverage like a linebacker or something like
zone blitz. Oh, the good old zone blitz. Can you imagine Jordan Davis doing that this year?
Can you imagine a slot receiver wanting to run a route across the middle if Jordan Davis drops back in coverage?
He's got the speed as a linebacker.
He's got the speed. Like, didn't he run a really good 40? I mean, I don't like 40-yard times, but I think he ran a good 40. So maybe there's some speed for a 400-pound man right there.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. I would love to see that. That'd be pretty interesting.
On a side note, I know. Jason, hold on. I got a funny question.
Right.
I know you're at the beat. You go to practice. You go to camp. Can you do me a favor when you go to camp? Speaking of Jordan Davis, I need video of Jordan Davis going one-on-one with Jordan Mailata, just in a one-on-one head-to-head charge. I want to see the two of those heads just go battering ram sumo style one-on-one.
Oklahoma drill style. That would be fun to watch.
That was the first thing that came into my mind. Those two battles.
To see those two together, or not also when it comes to or even the basketball, or on a basketball, to see like one post up the other one, I'd be willing to watch that too. It'd be fun, interesting to watch.
Bang Theory, if you believe in the Big Bang Theory, I think it would happen again when the two of them collided.
All of a sudden, new elements are created. The stars are alive. Oh my goodness!
Yeah. Whole new planet, a whole new multiverse created right there. Sorry, Jason.
No reason to be sorry. I actually would love to see that myself. So thoughts on the Kobe Dean, and I know there's two different thoughts. Some people are saying, well, there's obviously something wrong with the guy. How would he drop that far? And how can Howie be the smartest guy in the room to get him in the third round? Like, is this guy legit? And if the Eagles really did get him in the third round and he is healthy, is it one of the best steals in the draft?
I like what he brings in a couple ways. I like the intangible aspect. I think he's a good leader. I think this team's been missing like that true like guy that can go ahead and start a fire on that defense, a passionate guy. And I think he fits that. And then when it comes to positionally overall, he can go back into coverage. I like the way that he reads the defense quickly, and he can go scrape to a hole, shuffle to an area he needs to, and attack at the point of attack. The biggest thing was the pec issue and his injury histories overall. And if the way he's running, it's tough to tell, especially when it came to the mini camp, because it was just guys running back and forth thing. You don't see the actual contact, but he says he's fine. The Eagles seem to say he's fine when it comes to that pec issue. If that's the case, and he fell all the way down that way, it's perfect. It fell in perfectly for them. They have a guy who can be that second level leader for a long time. And you don't have to worry about so much of, okay, you got to start taking down. I think personally, I think he's a 3-down linebacker, which is you need in this defense, especially as well too. So I think overall, this could be, if it works out, and the biggest key, if he remains on that field, this could be one of the best draft picks the team has made in about a couple decades.
Wow.
So I mean, if that's one of the best draft picks that they've made, obviously there's been a lot of turnover in the front office, and everybody talks about coaching trees. I look at all the turnover as it's really just the front office coaching, like the coaching tree of the front office, that teams want these guys. But there is a lot of change going on in the front office, a lot of scouting department changes, a lot of personnel changes going on there. Is any of it an issue at all? Like, is any of it like you see Tom Donahue, everybody talks about him because of the draft, fist pump heard around the world a few years back there. Is there any issues going on in the front office right now? Or is this just simply these guys are getting promotions and getting poached to other teams and want GM jobs and assistant GM jobs elsewhere? Or is there anything to be concerned about with a Howie power struggle there, you think?
I don't think it's so much a power struggle. I think it's more of like, we have a lot of people who are good when it comes to their talent evaluations, i.e. look at the last two drafts. Yeah. And when you have that, teams are going to start to take notice, and they're going to start trying to poach away some of these guys. Like, I think two of the major ones were Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown, especially the Brandon Brown one. You got to lose a guy to the Giants right before the draft, and he knows the way the guys think. I think that was tough. Catherine Race is another good one. I think overall she's friends with Andrew Barry for a long time, so I think that was that was pretty important when it came to that. So overall, I think that was key. And overall, I think when you look at that, I don't think it's too much of a power struggle per se, and it's going to wind up being okay when it's all said and done.
I mean, you had I don't know if it was in jest and a joke, but I know Harry Roseman was quoted yesterday saying, well, Jeffrey Lurie kind of told me to draft more Alabama guys, but you have kind of seen in the last year or two, you see Alabama guys, you see Georgia guys that are NFL ready. Do you think just Howie just basically learned from his mistakes finally after all these years, or if he's been told?
Yeah, I think he did. I think he stopped trying to be the smartest guy in the room. I think he's a lot of times you saw like he tried to go out. You look at the Marcus Smarts and you look at some of the other picks and it was like, oh wow, look at this. They have they try to get a little bit like they try to get too cute in a way when you look at some of those picks. And I think what they did now is just say, hey, you know what? Look at the guys who played in tough talent. Who played tough situations, who played at the highest level in the best conference in the SEC, who performed well in it. Okay, they're NFL ready because we all know the SEC is the closest thing you can get to the NFL. So I think overall, when you take that, you look at that, you go, hey, you know what? I think this is these guys have played at a high level. These guys were playing well. Put them in there. I think it's perfect.
All right. So I got to get you out of here because I know you got more breaking news and things to take care of there at NJ.com. Real quick, 2-second answer. Is it embarrassing the way the NBA MVP voting, the writers, how they handled the MVP voting?
Yeah, it is. I think it really
or
is.
You can throw the MLB Hall of Fame voting process. It's an embarrassment. We talk about it all the time on this show.
Analytics are important, but the fact that they use the analytics and said to be the end all be all and not rely on their eyes as much, I think that's a really big thing that has to change now in all sports when it comes to there. I mean, analytics are a nice way to help fatten up an argument, but when you look at what your eyes tell you what a guy means to a team or when a guy performs everything else, I think that's when you look and you say, hey, you know what? That basically Embiid deserved that MVP and Jokic. It deserved to be close. But I think when you look at everything said and done, Embiid is the one that should have won that MVP. It should have won that MVP this year. It wasn't even. I'm sorry, Joker isn't the MVP. I'm sorry. If you got to be, I know everybody talks about, well, it's a postseason award. It's a regular season award. Well, you're a defensive liability. Doesn't mean you're very valuable. This is not the Offensive Player of the Year award. It's an MVP Most Valuable Player on both ends, and I think Embiid was that guy.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Chris Franklin at Chris Franklin News covers, like I said, the Eagles beat for NJ.com. Great work as always, my friend. We love reading your stuff, and I can't wait for your camp coverage because I know last year I couldn't get enough of your camp coverage there. And now that your partner Mike's not there anymore, it's going to be strictly you that I have to follow for my camp up.
It's tough, man. I miss Mike. He's great. I miss him.
I'm going to crop that out and send it to him, all right?
But yeah, it's great, man. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chris, you have a great day, all right, buddy?
You too. Thanks. See you.
Thanks. Took him off there. All right, that was Chris Franklin there, NJ.com. Appreciate him giving us some of his time this morning to talk some of this Eagles offseason. Jason, anything stand out to you that what he said there?
Nakobe Dean, I was really looking forward to getting some insight, further insight. Obviously, we've heard the outside noise, but
right.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, the more I think about it, like every day, the fact that we got this guy in the third round, and he's a guy that I actually, early in the draft, I was looking at the Eagles as possibly drafting him in the first round. Like,
we wanted him in the first round.
Obviously, I wanted Jameson Williams, but my point is that when I was looking at the defensive side guys, it wasn't Jordan Davis. It was Nakobe Dean. I like the guy Jermaine Johnson. Yeah. Those were the guys.
Got all the draft names. All right. They've all escaped my mind now.
But Nakobe Dean, yeah, I'm excited because I think Chris really he was excited. So I think it's going to be, I'm looking at that, man. If it does turn out like we could have one of the, I mean, I'm not saying Ray Lewis, but I'm just saying like you look at linebackers and you realistically look at the track record of linebackers that this team has had. I mean, obviously Jeremiah Trotter comes to mind like as being, my favorite, obviously. And, you're talking way back, and he was a 3rd-round pick, so it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I like how, I mean, he talked a lot about the offense. We tried to get a little defensive talk there. I think it's a topic to discuss a little further as this week and, tomorrow with our guest tomorrow and going forward, as we get Eagles offseason talk underway. The fact that Jonathan Gannon's defensive scheme is going to be a little bit different this upcoming year. You're going to see a lot of different types of look up front. Yeah, and he didn't answer it. We asked it. He never got into it. The Bradbury, signing. We talked about that yesterday or a couple of days ago. That I don't think Bradbury gets signed here because if he does, then something's wrong with him. Because what we have cap wise versus what he's worth versus the Giants actually got rid of all those different factors and combined. But we will get another cornerback, just like we got Steven Nelson in June or July, on a 1-year deal, and he was serviceable in that cornerback 2 spot. Realistically speaking, the front 7 is going to be a front 5, a front 6, a front 7. You're going to see 3-4. You're going to see 5-1, like he said. You're going to see 3-2. You're going to see 4-1. You're going to see so many different combinations of rushers, because Hassan Reddick, he's an outside linebacker, but he's a rusher. He's a blitzer. That's really what he is. And you're going to see some combination of 1 or 2 down guys like Fletcher Cox, Hargrave, Davis, and then a combination of the Sweats, the Reddicks, the Derek Barnett, unfortunately, the blitzers. And you're going to see so many different things that I think it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon really is.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's obvious they're a lot more dynamic. The players that they brought in, obviously, in the draft and free agency, that I'm actually a guy that's really going under the radar is the linebacker that we signed from the Chargers.
It's your White.
I mean, you look at, and I know once again it's just numbers, and you look at the analytics, but he put up some good numbers in a defense that realistically was a bad defense. Like the Chargers had a god-awful defense compared to the Eagles. Like we complained about the Eagles defense. The Chargers, that was like their Achilles heel. And he was one of the stars on that defense. Like sometimes you got to look at that too, is why maybe he became available. Like obviously they want to change some guys, but I'm looking at him as like a guy that nobody really is talking about, but could be a good piece. I'm not saying he's going to be a star.
I mean, I love linebacker play is one of my favorite things in football. If I was going to be an NFL player, I want, I'm too fat and slow to be a quarterback. So I was going to be a linebacker. That's what I wanted to be. I love linebacker play. And there are question marks with our linebackers this year, but what we went into last season versus what we're going into this season with. Now, you signed White to a 1-year prove-it deal. And when it first was signed, I kind of compared it to Eric Wilson signed a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal. But they're 2 totally different players at 2 different parts of their career. It's conceivable at this moment that T.J. Edwards, one of our best linebackers last year, or Davian Taylor, who had so much promise, going into his second year last year, that one of those guys, if Nakobe Dean is healthy, it's Nakobe Dean, it's Kasir White, then it's Edwards and Davian Taylor in the pecking order of talent. Now, how Jonathan Gannon uses them, that'll be another question. And then that doesn't even count Hassan Reddick, because even though he's a linebacker, I don't really consider him a true linebacker. I consider him a 3-4 linebacker, just a blitzer, because that's what he does. I mean, he'll stop the run a little bit too, but he's there to blitz the quarterback. But that prototypical linebacker, it's if Nakobe Dean's healthy, he might be the best linebacker on this team. And then throwing Kasir White.
I wouldn't even say might. He's definitely the best. I mean, I think he's already.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, you obviously drafted him for that because you knew that you were.
Well, you think about it. He was drafted in the 3rd round. So was Davian Taylor.
Yeah, but Davion Taylor did not come in with the same pedigree as Nakobe Dean.
Was he Colorado or something like that?
But no, I get what you're saying, and I agree with it. I'm looking at, like, I don't know, like, I know we keep talking about the big flashy moves, the A.J. Browns, the Nakobe Deans, like all of this, but they did make some good under the radar signings that I think could be helpful. And another guy, you look on the offensive side of the ball, you got Zach Pascal, who, nobody's talking about, obviously, but now on this team, he's only going to be the fourth fourth wide receiver. You there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I thought I lost you.
I think my computer just froze up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just can't see the screen. That's all. Yeah, sorry. I don't even know where we're talking about. Oh, there we go. Screen's back up and running. I got too many tabs open sometimes. Let me just close out some tabs there. I don't know what happened there for a second. What were you saying? I kind of was freaking out that my screen.
I was just saying that I think they've made a lot of good under the radar signings that might not be, which every good team needs.
That's not to say though that there's still not holes on the defense. You still got the cornerback 2 position. That's a question mark, and there's still the question mark in safety. To me, I still think Harris and Epps as your top 2 safeties is a question mark, massively, and could be an issue. But on the flip side, having a better front 7 makes everybody in the back a little bit better.
I agree.
Or maybe Marcus Epps turn. I mean, we saw glimpses of potential in Epps last year. Maybe he becomes better when that pass rush is getting home a little bit more, when he doesn't have to do it all. I don't know. I'm trying to be positive about the secondary, and I still think, like I said, there'll be some changes to it. But the front 7 is just going to be great. So that's what I took from what Chris Franklin had to say there. That Jonathan Gannon, and that's what I've talked about Jonathan Gannon also, about how the league respects him more than the fans do. Obviously, that his philosophies are there. That's why he was getting the head coaching opportunities. His philosophies are there, but he just didn't have the talent. Now he's got the talent. So if we keep saying Jalen Hurts doesn't have any more excuses, Jonathan Gannon doesn't have any excuses now. I think it goes hand in hand there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could say that about a lot of, every aspect of the team. Like when a general manager, when an organization betters itself in the way that they did, the past 2 seasons, if you look overall at what they've done from where they come from, changing kind of basically the entire culture of the team by getting rid of Wentz, obviously rolling with Hurts. And then, the additions that they made the past 2 seasons, as far as Mailata taking a step forward, like everything you look at in this team, they're now a team that isn't necessarily ready to contend for a championship, but they're definitely ready to take the next step, which is showing growth and being a respectable NFL team. There's definitely a lot of, I don't want to say, there's a lot of, a lot is going to be expected because you got AJ Brown, you got, the defensive enhancements that you made. There's a lot of obviously moving parts that you got to look at, but in the scheme of things, the team is definitely ready to take the next step. And if they don't, there's going to be some, people that are going to be looked at. Howie obviously can sit back and say, well, I made all these moves now. You guys just raved about how good my draft was and how good, my front office is. Right? I mean, I don't know.
Sorry, I was just saying it looks like unofficially the Eagles' schedule has been released.
Oh, okay.
It does not. That's why Chris Franklin had to get off the show, because he heard, I guess, there was schedule news. This is not confirmed yet because it's technically not released till 8:00 tonight. But all this gets released in general. And this doesn't have dates or times on it. But it looks like we already knew Monday Night Football Week 2 against Minnesota was our home opener, and it looks like there was reports yesterday that Arizona was going to be our first game in Arizona, but it looks like that is false. That it's going to be in Detroit for Week 1. So that probably be a 1:00 game. So in Detroit, my man Jason Sullivan, we're going to smack down on the Lions. Sully, you are in trouble if that's the case.
Well, if you wanted Jameson Williams, if he's healthy, you'll get to see him.
See him Week 1. It looks like Week 7 is the bye. And this is unconfirmed. It looks like it's at Dallas, home Minnesota, at Washington Week 3, then home Jacksonville, at Arizona, home Dallas, then the bye, home Pittsburgh. That's key. Week 6, home at Dallas, then a bye, and then home for Pittsburgh. That's great. Getting basically 3 straight weeks at home because of the bye week there. Then you got at Houston on Thursday Night Football. You got Washington Monday Night Football. It looks like we got 2 Monday Night Football games. We got a Saturday night game in Dallas, the third to last week of the season. The end of our season, at Giants, at Bears, at Dallas, then home New Orleans, home Giants. So, yeah, that's a little tough. 3 of our last 5 games on the road, 3 games in a row on the road. That's tough in general. So it'll be interesting. We're gonna get into the schedule tomorrow. I haven't confirmed them yet. I'll confirm them this afternoon, but it seems like it's all go. We'll have Connor Miles from Sports Illustrated on tomorrow morning at 8:30, right away to kick the show off. We'll be talking Sixers Game 6, but we're going to start the show with the Eagles, and we'll break down the schedule, and what our thoughts are on the schedule, key matchups, key stretches of games and stuff like that. Once we know the times, once we know those things, because you got to look at it. Say you play Dallas X week. Well, who did Dallas play the week before? Who does Dallas play the week after? There's a lot of things to break down when you're looking at a schedule. So we'll go over that tomorrow. Plus, we'll get Connor's thoughts, just like Chris's, on the Eagles offseason. But we're going to keep this show rolling. Everybody have a great Thursday. It's Thursday, right, Jason? Thursday, I think?
It's Friday.
It's Friday today? I don't know what it is. Every day just melts together to me.
Every day is Thursday.
I don't know.
For Phil.
Every day is the same. I get up, I host Trending in the
Groundhog
AM,
Day, baby.
go to work, I come home, I watch sports, and I go to bed.
It's Groundhog Day.
I eat, sleep, poop, and work, and that's it. That's it. Anyway, everybody have a fantastic Thursday. I am Phil Stifle at Bearded Knowledge. My main man, Jason Ford, he's at Mustang3651. Make sure you shoot us all a follow. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Thank you to everybody tuning in today. And everybody have a fantastic Thursday. We greatly appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Connor Miles, NFL schedule, everything. Yo, go Birds, baby.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
That's right.